All right, welcome to Mired in Faith with Father Christopher Myers. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And we had a different topic planned for this episode, which we promoted in the last episode, but so much time's gone by that I don't think anybody's keeping score. But it's the beginning of Advent. And, full disclosure, we're recording this on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, also known as Black Friday, because to most of the world, this is the unofficial beginning, even though it probably started back in, July, Christmas in July. But it's the unofficial start of the shopping season, right?
Mhm.
And but really, in 2 more days on Sunday, it's the first day of Advent. So, Father, with your blessing, I thought it would be really good to get something out there at the beginning of Advent to just talk about Advent, and before we get into the topic, and I have a bunch of questions for you, or maybe just like comments that I would love to hear your perspective. Um, but would you lead us in prayer to get started?
Sure. Sure. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Good and gracious God, as we come into your presence, we thank you for this opportunity to spread the word of your Son. We ask that you send your grace down upon us and bless our conversation, bless those who go without, bless those who are out on the fringes this Advent season, especially in the cold. Give them the warmth of your Son. We ask this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you. So, what do you think of this topic? Obviously you're preparing from a liturgical standpoint, and I'm sure on a personal level, there's preparation. I don't love to hear what goes on in the rectory around Christmas time, how much pressure, is put on the priests, is what's involved. So maybe we can start there. What do your preparations liturgically look like?
Well, you would think that it's really, really stressful, but in a way it's kind of counterintuitive because there's so much stuff going on that there's so much more to talk about. For example, like the liturgical calendar makes it so much easier to preach about because there's always the same readings every year, every Advent. And you know what's coming, you know what you're trying to prepare the people for. You know that, for instance, you're going to get readings every Sunday for the next 3 Sundays on John the Baptist. So you can talk about John the Baptist. You can talk about John the Baptist's relationship with Jesus. You can talk about how we can be John the Baptist in inviting Jesus. There's just so much to talk about. It's actually more difficult to preach during ordinary time. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's really there's so it's so rich. It's so rich, but it's also so focused too. Um,
So it
because
forces you to focus.
right, exactly. And I think the other thing too is it's imagistic. Is that a word?
What's the
Imagistic? Im,
imagistic?
image. There's a lot of
Oh,
images.
imagistic.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It,
There's a
it the
lot of
scene
imagery. Is that what you're saying?
imagery. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to be able to talk. No, I'm kidding. Um, there's a lot of images and imagery you can use uh with Advent. So it makes it just so much easier and so much more fun too.
So I'm taking from your answer that one of the biggest weights, and it's funny because we call Advent a waiting period, and I thought a good title for this was, the weight of Advent, WEIGHT, because there's a lot of weight put on people. And judging from your answer, it seems like the biggest weight on you, or the biggest pressure point is what to say at the altar or just in passing because you're always on, when you're out in the community as a priest. But I wondered, is there other constraints on your time? Is there more to do, other services? I mean, I know there's extra penance services, and um, there's not really sacramentals outside of the few weddings, maybe, and funerals, but what what else is there that
I think you really kind of pinned it down. I think parishes with the schools that are blessed with schools like ours, though, um, it makes it a little bit more busier because not only do you have to prepare penance services for adults, but you have to do penance services and confessions for kids too.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, of course, the seal of confession is sacred and we don't violate those. But a good priest knows what his people confess and what sins they confess, so they can use those confessions to help understand where their people are coming from in order to be able to preach appropriately to them.
Oh, okay, without directly addressing the confession, but you just have a general idea, and
Yeah,
it's interesting too, because if it's something that's permeating a community, you're going to hear it more than once.
exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I
Very
mean,
cool.
especially since if you like say you get a lot of people who confess that I missed a mass or something like that, you can focus a homily on the importance of going to mass, especially in Advent, or maybe doing a daily mass to make up for things. Not that you can make up, for because going to mass is a mortal sin, obviously. A missing mass, I'm sorry, is a mortal sin. Um, but you can do other things. You can get creative, and there's really kind of an art to it. So it's kind of cool.
That's interesting to hear. So the other side of this season is the secular, and it has my entire lifetime, and I'm sure beyond, really consumed the religious, if you will,
Mhm.
to the point, people don't even know what they're celebrating, and it's so sad. Oh, well, it's the winter solstice, it's the season of snow. Well, tell that to somebody that lives near the equator. No, you know. Um, and so, and it used to sound cliche, oh, the reason for the season, but it's not. There's so many truths in that. And it's funny too, because and I don't know if it's just an age thing, but it seems more and more I'm running into people who, like me, feel like I just don't want to anymore. All I want to do is spend Christmas Eve in church and really celebrate Christmas from Christmas Eve on like it's supposed to be, right? So this Advent period is not, oh my gosh, I have to shop and plan the party and, bake and cook and visit everybody and their grandmother and literally and we miss the point.
Oh,
You know? And then December 26th, and I've been guilty of it. We're pulling down the decorations. And
no,
it's like, what?
yeah, and it's so true. We put so much pressure on ourselves to try to please others, and there's nothing wrong with trying to make people happy, but at the same time, it's got to be Christ-centered and focused on Jesus. So if we're not having enough time for instance, to focus on our prayer life, to build virtue, or to ask ourselves, well, what can I do this Advent to sort of to increase my spiritual life? Can I maybe fast from certain desserts, or maybe go to daily mass once a week, or spend an extra 15 minutes a week in prayer, or read a spiritual book, read something about the saints. There's so many things that we can do to prepare ourselves spiritually. If we're not having enough time to do that, I think we're either intentionally or unintentionally missing the whole point of the season. And I think sometimes we can get a little unintentionally. I give people the benefit of the doubt. I will say it's unintentional. They put so much focus on trying to make other people happy that the reason for the season is for us to become better people.
A few things you said there. First of all, I'm going to push back. I'm going to disagree with you.
Mhm.
Here we go. We're getting controversial now. Not totally disagree, but somewhat disagree. While our intentions might be pure that we want to do things for other people, I think a lot of it, and maybe this is a female perspective and a mom perspective, a lot of it is our own. We want to fulfill what we think is the perfect role for Christmas in our role. We want to do our best at it. So I'm expected to do certain things every year. Says who? Says me, because I put that expectation on myself. So am I
Yeah.
really doing it for everybody else, or am I doing it to check that off the list and be able to say, okay, good job, you got it all done? Do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Um, and you listed things that we could do to get closer to the faith, to get closer to God. You know, we're celebrating the coming of Jesus. And everything you listed to me mirrored everything you could list at Lent, which again, in my perspective, and you tell me if I'm wrong here because you speak to Catholics every day, and you speak about the faith every day, where I don't, well, maybe not as much as I'd like to. But I get the impression that we put more spiritual weight on, or not, weight's the bad word because I'm saying it's weighty in a bad way, this Advent season, the secular part of it. But maybe we put more credence on Lent than we do on Advent. And I wonder if there should be more balance. I mean, Easter is our high holy day. Is one more significant than the other? Are they equal, Christmas and Easter? Is that a tough question?
Um, I think there, I think there's there's an equal amount of importance there. Of course, though, the image of Christ fulfilling his mission is the Easter season, so I think that's why sometimes we put more weight in Lent. However, both Lent and Advent are both penitential seasons. That's why you see the priests will always wear violet colored vestments both in Lent and in Advent. Uh,
Explain what you mean by penitential for us dummies who don't quite get it.
so penitential season is it's a season of trying to make up for our sins. You know, there's the economy of salvation. So, for instance, if my soul is clean, but I know that someone I care about is living a life they're not fully they're not in league, they're not in step with the church, with what the church teaches, I can do penance for their sins.
Hmm.
So
So
as long
not
as
only for your own sins, but offering something to the cross for the souls of others. Now
exactly.
that's total altruism, no?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that really kind of brings brings us out of our own little kind of tunnel vision of how of the world, and that's what makes it so important. And perhaps that's why Advent should be actually taught to be more of a penitential season. That maybe that'll shake us out of this whole, um, you know, intention of like we were saying earlier about trying to make it all about making other people happy or making myself happy or making, with this consumerism and secularism
Yeah.
and trying to move out, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
trying to live up to this whole secular ideal, it definitely seemed you're a little bit younger than me. Okay, quite a bit younger. Does it seem like it's gotten worse as you've grown? Because I certainly see a difference.
um I think you see my perspective is a little different because when I was a kid, I we went learning about the faith was just going through the motions, and you just did it because that was the family tradition. And we were very we weren't orthodox to the teachings of the church. It was like I said, it was all about the traditions. And there was a point in my life where I said, oh, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in any of this, yada 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 yada. So I was really kind of playing for the other team at one point in time.
Wow, wow.
So I think in some ways it's gotten worse, but in other ways it's kind of sort of stayed the same. But in some ways too, I think there's people actually starting to come back to the church, more converts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And there's more and more people who are interested in the stories of the Bible and reading scriptures and seeing why, trying to understand why these stories have been so important to us for the past 2,000 years. So I think people are really kind of breaking away from this reliance on human institutions and really kind of focusing on the spiritual aspect of things. So,
Boy, I sure hope so because I'm old enough to remember remnants of Christmas season started Christmas Eve. A lot of my friends' families wouldn't put their tree up until Christmas Eve. Or if they were, when they were really young, they woke up and the tree was put up. Like these parents were insanely talented because somehow they went to bed very late on Christmas Eve. Um, or they put the kids to bed very late, stayed up and put up a tree, decorated a tree, wrapped in and put all presents under the tree, and then we're up at like the crack of dawn with their young kids, to celebrate, the visit of Saint Nicholas and all that, which is fine. But when we're celebrating pumpkin spice in August, and next thing you know, Easter candy's coming out in November, like how does this happen? I mean, a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much, because I guarantee you somewhere there's a CVS with Valentine hearts in it already. But so we've commercialized everything, and I know I'm singing to the choir, and everybody watching knows, and we all feel it. But how do we get back to taking that pressure off? I almost wonder if there's a whole generation. I had to kind of be retaught. Oh, the Christmas season, I knew that it ended on the Epiphany, but then I learned only in recent years, and I'm embarrassed to say, but I'll be honest. No, it doesn't really end at the Epiphany. It's the Sunday after the Epiphany.
Mhm.
And so, what is that? Christ the King, or is that the Holy Family?
I don't remember off the top of my head, to
Oh,
be
okay,
honest.
good. Then I don't feel so bad. But the whole point is the Christmas season. So, those 12 days of Christmas don't end on Christmas Day. They actually start on Christmas Day and go 12 days later. And it would be neat to get. So I just think it's a matter of re-educating, because I think we do have um, several generations that really just don't know what the Catholic tradition is regarding the celebration of Advent and the Christmas season. So, as far as liturgical seasons go, Advent is one season, and then the Christmas season is another. Isn't that right? Or do I have that wrong?
Yes, yes, yeah. In terms of the liturgical calendar, absolutely. I mean,
Wow.
and the same, and it's very much similar to Lent and Easter, because Lent happens and Easter doesn't really end. You have Easter Sunday, and then you have the Easter octave, and then same
Right.
with Christmas. You have the Christmas octave, and then after the octave, then the season continues to a certain date, and the same thing with Easter. The Easter continues to a certain date.
Can you explain to us what the octave means?
Octave is a series of 8 days where it's actually Christmas. The celebration of Christmas doesn't end on Christmas Day. It actually ends after 8 days.
Right.
So Christmas Day lasts an octave, so it lasts 8 days. Um, and you'll know this when you go to Mass on Sunday that the deacon or the priest, whomever is serving, says, "Go in peace," and he'll sing Alleluia, Alleluia, and then the people respond, "Thanks be to God, Alleluia," and that happens during the octave, the Easter and the Christmas octave, and that's why, because it's the octave.
That's so cool. I know that that happens once in a while, and I didn't never put together that that was just during the octaves.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Would you mind explaining to everybody the colors? You talked about the purple vestments, and we know that the third Sunday of Advent, it's pink.
Yes. Yes.
Why?
So the pink is a symbol of hope. So like you've got Gaudete Sunday, which is in Lent, and I can't remember what it is in Advent. There's a Latin term for it, but my Latin is I barely made it through Latin in seminary, so I'm lucky to be where I'm at right now. Um, but it's a symbol of hope. So we usually on the third Sunday, it's there's usually 4 or 5 Sundays in Lent and 4 or 5 Sundays in Advent. So we celebrate this hope because we've had this penitential season for a few weeks, and now we're about it. It's right around the corner, so we're getting hopeful. We're building up that hope, and we're just getting ready because it's just right around the corner. And it's cool too because we'll have a series of readings on Sunday about John the Baptist and how he prepares the way of the Lord and just about his life. And and it's interesting because if you look at it, you can compare a lot of the annunciation of the birth of John the Baptist, and you can compare the annunciation of the birth of Jesus, and just how similar it is, and what's the differences, and what does that mean with the differences? Like, what does that mean about Jesus compared to John the Baptist? So there's a lot of really cool things for anybody who's a theology nerd like myself to really kind of see. If you compare and contrast, you can get a lot of the messaging that that those readings tell us about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And John the Baptist was quite a unique character. Um,
Yeah.
really admirable. And, I always knew that. I knew he had extreme courage, which is probably the foundation for all virtues. And I hate to do this, but the portrayal or the fictional portrayal through The Chosen, that's
Mhm.
all I think of now when I think of John the Baptist. And I like him even more because he's this wild child from the 60s and but he's totally down with the faith and he's cool and he doesn't care what anybody thinks and smarter than anything, but very unassuming. Um,
The Chosen's done such a good job with these stories. They take some artistic liberties,
sure.
but they're very, very, very careful not to go against anything that's doctrine or dogma in any of the major Christian denominations, which I really admire,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
make it appealing to so many Christians. And I really think that because of that series, there's a lot of people are coming back to the faith because of that.
There's just a lot of things going on simultaneously, and I think that's definitely one of them. It's fabulous, and I will remind people who may be watching this podcast for the first time and hearing about The Chosen, just Google it. You have to watch this series. If you're binging anything, you got to binge on this. There's seven, five have been released. The sixth will be next year. We're getting closer to the crucifixion. But what they did so masterfully was they gave the characters that we know, the apostles, Jesus, other biblical figures that we've read about and we know their names, they've given them personalities so we
Mhm.
could relate to them. I'm reminded, because when we look at, ancient times, we think everybody was old. We look at George Washington and we picture this guy with white hair, near death, but he was a young guy on horseback,
Mhm.
galloping around the country, But the same, I think, for religious figures, we look at the statues of the saints that we venerate and we just think they're all old. And the chosen, we're reminded that these guys were Jesus's age and younger. They were 18, 19, 20, maybe, maybe a little bit older than that, but not much. They were young, rugged men that were looking to do like just take on the world and really make a difference. And they learned a lot and you can relate to each of them.
Oh yeah,
Like every character, I see a little bit of me. I see this person, that person, people that I love, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I get it now.
yeah,
We're the chosen. We are the chosen. I've heard this. I know I'm taught this, but it really came home. You know what I mean? So
definitely.
I think I don't know. And again, I don't know if it's an age thing, but the more I dig into the faith, and I've been at it seriously now, despite being a cradle Catholic and 12 years of Catholic school, I didn't really start studying the faith until about 20 years ago at around age 40. And all I can say, and it sounds again cliche, but oh my gosh, I don't know if I have enough years left to really understand it, but it's so radical, it's cool.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and I told this to my mother too, God rest her soul before she passed. Um, Learning the faith as an adult is so different than learning it as a child. It's a shame. And there's a part of me who kind of wishes maybe confirmation didn't come until adulthood, because people tend to treat confirmation like graduation, and there's nothing more to learn about the faith, and that's so not true. There's 2,000 years worth of understanding and just gaining wisdom in the faith. And wisdom also comes with something called experience. And you can't be wise in the faith without experience. And adulthood helps you get that experience you need to get the wisdom in the faith.
I have a solution though. Because
What's
I've
that?
often thought that too about confirmation. I remember preparing for my own in fifth grade, 10 years old, and I just remember memorizing the seven deadly sins, these virtues, those virtues, all these other things that I have since forgotten. But the one thing in all that rote memorization, and even though I didn't have the maturity to really appreciate what I was being confirmed in, it did plant seeds. And I would say it does for many people, and many parents think their kids are done after the sixth grade or whatever confirmation age is. We're done with Catholic school. We can now go public, which is not good. But I think one of the things that we can do as a church is kind of remind young adults that the next form of confirmation, the next opportunity you have to really learn the faith, and now you're quite kind of ready, is when you're preparing for your vocation, whether it's religious or holy matrimony. And and I think, and of course I'm biased here, and I think I've told you this before, but I've been part of a marriage preparation ministry for almost 20 years, and it all stems from my own experience, which I sum up in one sentence, and I tell this to all the couples that I meet with on a regular basis. It's everything I know about marriage I learned through divorce. And it was that experience that sent me, head first into trying to understand the faith and how does a cradle Catholic end up divorced. And and what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be a graduation. While there doesn't seem to be anything that forces our hands, at the next stage of learning and growing in the faith, there actually is, and it is holy matrimony if we take it seriously and we really prepare for that the way God intended, or the way we did for our first penance and our first Holy Communion, and of course our confirmation. If we studied and prepared properly for marriage, and I'm sorry, I'm taking your show from me, but I also think, and I'm hoping you'll use this at some point, but I also think it's cause for marrying earlier than rather than later too. Another symptom of society and just the way the culture has gone. People are delaying marriage because they don't see it at, well, for many reasons, but we'll go back to Advent because that's important, but that's the topic tonight. But they don't see holy matrimony as sacred, and it is.
Yeah.
Some do. I'm not. I don't want to paint a blanket statement, but I think what's gone in our society is that, oh, I want to marry early because I want to be with this person and be one. Well, all that has been, in our culture kind of whitewashed, oh, it doesn't matter. And I think we have, again, generations of people who grow up thinking what they see is normal because that's all they're exposed to, and the first step to a lifelong commitment is moving in together. It's like,
Hmm.
no,
Yeah.
no, it's committing through marriage, it's making the sacrament, and we'll get there. I do think we'll get there because, like you said, there's hope. And I think, to in a very clumsy way bring it back to Advent. um, I think all of us can do something this Advent season as we are kind of caught up and we're trying to balance the commercialism with the religious. I think we can lean more a little into the faith, like you said, pray, maybe attend mass an extra day of the week, um, but really try to connect with other people and evangelize. So, what tips do you have for us to help really evangelize during this season when it's okay to say God in public? Because I think we're getting better at it. But,
Yeah.
Christmas is definitely Merry Christmas. God bless you. We could say these things and maybe start a conversation. I don't know. All ears.
Um, there's a bunch of things we can do this, during the Advent season, and I think we already talked about a couple of them.
Mm.
But one of the things I think we can also do is watch spiritual things like The Chosen, stuff like that, and watch a movie about a saint. I think Fox Nation has Martin Scorsese has this series on the saints or something like that.
Yes,
I haven't
yes.
watched it yet, but I'm curious to see how other people what other people think about that. But there's a lot in the media now about religion and faith and spirituality that we can do during the Advent season, in addition to going to more mass a week, to daily mass, to setting aside 15 minutes for prayer, to fasting or anything like that, building up virtue. Um, there's and show your kids media that shows why this season is important, about the story of Christmas, or who Saint Nicholas truly was.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, all that stuff.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah, so fortify ourselves and then those around us as well. And so if we're going to consume anything around this time of year, try to bring God into that, whatever it is that we're consuming. Yes, and garbage in, garbage out, put good stuff in, good stuff's going to come out. So there is more media. Angel Studios, if you go to their website, they always have movies and usually they're free, maybe a donation, that sort of thing. So there is a lot out there, and I think it's getting better.
Yeah,
We have
definitely.
we have great apps too for
Yeah,
prayers and all that stuff at our disposal.
definitely.
So again, I mentioned we're recording this on Friday. God willing, this will come out Sunday or maybe Saturday. So you're going to be preparing this weekend for a homily for the
Yeah.
first Sunday of Advent. Any
Yes.
ideas what we might expect? Want to try it
Um,
out on us?
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really had a chance to go over the readings yet, but I really like to focus on one thing. And because this is such a rich um rich season, you can never there's so much you can talk about. So and the calendar is always the same every year.
Yeah.
So you really never run out of things to talk about, which makes preaching so much more easier, and I think we talked about it once about how, ordinary time is actually much more difficult to find
Yeah.
things to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, so there's just, you could talk about the sacrament of confession since it's a penitential season. You can talk about some of the good things, and also you can talk about some of the good things about some of the stuff that we talked about, like, prayer, going to daily mass. But you can also talk about the elephant in the room, about how the people, how nervous people are about going to confession, and that if they have had, God forbid, we don't want that, but if they've had a bad experience in confession, just to not let that interfere in their relationship with God, to go to another priest instead
Hmm.
of that same priest, and to find someone else to talk about, and to, hopefully there are more priests out there who are more merciful, and who are more, and I think most priests are.
I think
Don't get
most are really good, but and if you will, as a layperson, if you'll let me throw this out there, because I've heard some of the pushback from friends and people, and I just, you got to remind people that priests are people too. They're not perfect. So I would suggest not only are we praying for ourselves as we're waiting in that confession line nervously, and I always feel awkward, especially because I know my parish priest now. I think, oh gosh, I got to tell him I did this. He's gonna look at me differently. But I um, I think that we can pray for the priest. Say a little prayer for the priest before you go into the confessional. He's able to relax because they've got a lot going on in their minds too. And I'm not speaking to you, Father. I'm speaking to our audience, and I've had a few incidents, and not at our church, but I'll share one. A couple of years ago, I was visiting a church and I had an opportunity to go to confession and I hadn't been there in 4 months. And the first thing the priest said was, and why so long? And I thought, you know what? If you were talking to anybody else, that person might run out of this confessional and never walk back in church again. I didn't say that to him. I just said, I know, Father, it's just, I have to make more time. I'll do better. But that's not what I'm here to confess. I went, into my list. But do you know what I mean? So yeah, I
definitely.
love this guy too. He was a great homilist and I haven't seen him in a long time, but I didn't hold it against him. But I'm just saying somebody else that, wasn't or me at a different point in my faith journey, I might never have come back, you
Yeah.
know. I remember as a child, a priest asked me, whatever I was confessing as a child, I lied. I don't know what I did. I wasn't a liar, so I don't know what I did, but or maybe I missed mass. And he said, that's what it was. And he said to me, do you love your parents? Or I was like, oh yeah. And he said, and I think he knew that I was a worrywart or something because again, I'm a child. I'm maybe 9 years old. I don't know. And he said, what if something happened to your parents and you missed mass? Wouldn't you feel guilty? And I was like, oh, he totally guilt tripped me as a 9-year-old. And it worked. But that's not how it should be, But again, I say this, just because I know people can relate.
Oh yeah.
Once in a while people say, we've all said things we shouldn't say. We all have. So we have to give grace as well. But again, the priest, he's representing Jesus. Will you explain it, Father, what the confessional is all about?
Yeah. So yeah, he's in the person of Jesus, but at the same time, it's important for us. And I'm a confessee too, so I have to go to confession too. So there are times when the priest might be impatient with me, but it's important for us to remember, just to kind of remember, we're there for God's grace, not the priest's grace.
Hmm.
And I was speaking to the seniors at the school about confession and going to church and making sure that they go to mass. And I hold I hold nothing back from the kids, because the kids, they know when you're not being genuine, and they will eat you alive if you're not being yourself, and if you're trying to get to feed them a load of baloney, and you just can't. So and when I tell them, if you're missing mass or anything like that, if you don't like the priest, find another church, because it's not about your relationship to the priest. It's about your relationship to Christ. And that's what's most important. So if you just can't stand this priest, and it's just something that's bothering you, and it's like a bee in your bonnet, find another priest.
Yeah.
Just find another priest.
Or offer it to the cross, right? I mean, you're
Or
not,
it's lost. Exactly.
yeah, you're there to devote the time to God. It's not
Right.
a, people also say, and I have too, because we're all in different places in our faith journey, and sometimes it's like a curve, but oh, I don't get much out of Mass. Well, maybe you're not there to get, maybe you're there to give. Just give your
Yep.
time, and so I came to that realization a long time ago too. And so so just a couple of more things, if you don't mind. First of all, I love the whole penitential season. I just don't think of Advent as a penitential season. Certainly I do Lent, but you've given me totally new perspective. So I'm really excited to jump into the Advent season with that in mind this year personally. The other thing I just wanted to ask before we go is Christmas Eve and Christmas Day Mass, just like Easter, probably
Mhm.
the most packed you're going to find of the year, right? You have
Yep.
people, you have the CEO Catholics coming, the Christmas, Easter only. And it's such an opportunity for priests. And I'm sure this is something that's on your mind every season. What do you think you might do this year differently to try to get them to want to come back the following week?
Well, I'm the type of priest who loves kids. I'm like the crazy priest who like gets a kick out of kids. There's so many priests who it's just not their cup of tea to preach to kids. Me, I love them. I love it. It's amazing. So what I do is I try to include kids when they come to mass, especially if there's a specific mass dedicated just for kids. And
Oh, you're seeing the holiday as there's more kids in church than normally.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. And w adults notice that, and it makes them want to come to mass too. And
Gotcha.
so that's my secret weapon is I try to reach out to the kids and make them a part of mass.
Yeah,
And
that's
even not even during the Christmas season. Even like if there's a significant number of kids who come to mass like, on an
mhm.
ordinary Sunday, I make sure I try to reach out to them, because adults notice it, and they notice that, you're trying to include everyone. You're trying to include everyone in the community, and it really makes a big difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Who doesn't get a kick out of, when you're during the homily, when you come out into the pews and, question people and just have fun with everybody. It's entertaining. Not that we're there to be entertained, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
That,
Absolutely.
that's
Definitely.
wonderful. What about scripturally for us tonight on a closing note? Anything you want to share
I'd say
related to this?
I liked Isaiah 9. The
Hmm.
people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, on them has a light shone. It's a very, very good particular reference for me. I just, because without Christ we walk in darkness. I know it's a buzzword. Those are words are buzzwords, but it's easy for us to get angry. It's easy for us to get bitter. It's easy for us to despair. But remember that Christ has already conquered all this stuff, and we just need to find a way to ride his coattails, so to speak. And when we realize that that's what life is, to that we ride Jesus's coattails, life gets a lot more beautiful. And there are times when we want to despair, but we remember that Jesus nailed himself to that cross and he was resurrected 3 days later. So as long as we're trying to follow him and doing the best we can, I really believe this. I really believe that if we do the best we can, God will sort everything out. God will work everything out. I think there's an economy of salvation, and that economy really just kind of, we can hope in that. We can hope in that. Let's put it that way.
So Jesus is the light of the world. We're celebrating his coming into the world, the light. We can we can look at the North Star as and literally make it our North Star and not worry or fret over all the little things, added outside pressures around the holidays, and just remember what's really important. But it
Definitely,
takes a little effort, right?
definitely, definitely,
And
definitely.
you've given us some good tips on how to deal with that. Wonderful. Well,
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you. It was
Happy
good to meet you.
Advent. And let's see, Isaiah 9 that was, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes and all our contact information will go in the show notes. And who knows what I know we were going to make this episode about a faith, just a discussion on what is faith, which is, and I'm curious to get deep into that. So maybe the next episode.
Sure, sure. And maybe we'll have a guest too. We'll see
All
what
right.
it's out.
That sounds exciting.
All right.
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
It's
thank you,
good to be with
Father.
you.
If you'll close us out in prayer.
Sure. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, good and gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to get together in fellowship and evangelization. We ask that you send your grace down upon us and protect us in those times where we lose our path. And we ask this in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you. God bless.
You too. God bless.